For more on this breaking tariff news, Matthew Holmes is the Executive Vice President of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for hopping on.
Great to be with you, JP.
Have you looked through the annexes yet of the goods that are going to be tariffed? Are you concerned about what the Americans are threatening to impose on some of our products in 30 days?
Yeah, we're starting to go through that list, and I know it seems like a strange list, but to some of your previous guests' points, these lists are designed with great care. This is something the American administration, we believe, has been working on for some time, and that's done to inflict pain and to hit specific businesses, sometimes in specific jurisdictions where they think that may have some influence or some impact. So this is a signal to be seen, to be heard. It is the administration expressing its concern and its desire to be taken seriously on this. So they're upset and they're making a point here.
How do you read these retaliatory measures? Do you think it is actually retaliation against Canada taking action, holding the American booze off the liquor shelves, having those counter tariffs in place on automotives? Or do you read it as them trying to get us closer to potentially a larger deal with CUSMA? Or is it just to punish us because they like to do that sort of thing these days? Like, what is your read on the strategy behind all of a sudden coming up on a Monday in July with a whole long list of products that will now face a 50% tariff?
Well, I think the important thing here is if we can use this moment, and there is a 30-day window that opens at this point, and use that as a bit of a forcing mechanism. I don't think there's anything bad out of that if we can actually use this to get the two sides to the negotiating table and to have some formal talks scheduled and begun. That's actually a good thing. It helps us get away from this little discussion around this sector or that product and move it towards a fruitful conversation on the constructive North American ambition that we should be having, the prosperity goal, the growth goal for our economy. So if this happens to be the point, the catalyst where that talk begins, then we're happy to see that. But in the meantime, it's creating an incredible amount of uncertainty as this whole tariff trade war has for the Canadian business, for American businesses and consumers as well. It's very costly, and it over time just deteriorates the relationship and the trust and the goodwill that we actually need for constructive and beneficial commerce.
We heard from the Ontario Premier Doug Ford just a short while ago. He had a statement on social media, and he said if these tariffs proceed, Canada should respond tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. Obviously, we have a 30-day window that we're facing now before these tariffs are actually in place. But if they are in place, sir, by the end of that 30-day period, do you think we should follow what the Ontario Premier is suggesting and match those 50% tariffs with our own retaliatory measures?
Well, I think over the next 30 days, the government, both provincially, should be listening to their businesses, listening to consumers as well. But there's an obvious sort of anger and desire to react and hit back in Canada. We've all seen that over the last 18 months, and it's understandable. But I don't think the American administration particularly cares. And so we have to get ourselves to the point of what is the longer vision? What is the longer term time frame we're talking about here? And can we build towards constructive conversations? And I think this is a reminder that if we just keep hitting each other, it doesn't go anywhere positive.
Obviously, you work with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. You speak with businesses day in and day out who are grappling with these measures, who are grappling with this tariff regime that's now been foisted upon us now at higher rates, potentially in 30 days. What is the mood of the business community? I mean, surely they're just jumping from crisis to crisis at this point. Do you feel like they understand the seriousness of this issue? Do you think that they, what would they want the government to do at this juncture now that they're facing potentially steeper tariffs? That tough decision on whether to keep that guy on the manufacturing line or stop shipping products or, potentially look at some layoffs. Like, what would the business community like to see from this government to rectify this situation as it is now?
Well, the reality is there's all kinds of different business communities within Canada. So you have certain sectors that are doing very well on commodity cycles and on their export and their diversified exports, or the product that they sell that is perhaps even charging more than it used to because of the tariff regime. But there's a lot of small businesses, a lot of community-based businesses that don't know where to start anymore. They don't know. Last year in 2025 alone, there were over 50 different new changes to the American tariff code. That's more than one a week. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of administrative burden. It's very costly. It's very confusing. And a lot of these tariffs come on and then they come off again. And so there's no real way to fully follow that. And so what we need, and the purpose of a trade deal, is really to provide that consistency, that certainty, and that clarity, which is what businesses need. So right now, if I were to say, what the mood in Canada is a lot of businesses are sitting at the sideline. They're putting off investment decisions if they're not outright laying off some people, some of their workers. And we're seeing that in communities. We're seeing that in particularly sectors that are being targeted by the 232s. So what that tells us is that sectors that are being hit by tariffs do feel pain, and that results in pain for workers and communities. And that's not a good thing for Canadian economy.
We talked about the potential permanent damage, to this bilateral relationship, jumping from policy to policy, threat day after day, seemingly in some instances. Obviously, we've got the other threat of wildfire tariffs for smoke coming from a natural disaster in this country. Do you think that all of this validates the Prime Minister's plan to diversify trade? Because it's going to be hard to put this all back together right when we're through. Even if there is some sort of agreement that works for both sides, the damage done to the relationship is potentially long-standing. Do you think that this validates this quest to try and diversify beyond the continent, beyond the U.S. relationship, and dial things up with some of our other partners elsewhere?
What I've said for a while is, and I'll say it again here, is what's bad for business is losing your number one customer. But what's also bad for business is only having one customer. And the United States is our largest by an order of magnitude customer, and they will continue to be for a very, very long time, if not forever. So what that means is we need to take this relationship seriously. We need to facilitate as much as we can the trade that flows across the border both ways every day. But to diversify our trade is also a very important priority for the government, for businesses, for all of Canada, and we must do more of that. So the Canadian Chamber is fully in favor of the diversification strategy, but it will not be a silver bullet. It takes years and years, decades even, to fully diversify our trade. And to do that, we need to build trade infrastructure, the major projects we've been talking about that we're still trying to get done here. So that's bridges, it's rails, it's connectivity, it's ports. We need that before we can even diversify the products and the services that we trade around the world. And so there's a lot of work to do here at home for us to be able to even begin thinking about doing more trade around the world.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Matthew Holmes with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Nice to see you. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks. Good to see you again.